All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, July 6th, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm sorry for the unexpected change, but due to some family circumstances, I have to be remote this evening. So at any point, if you guys have trouble hearing me, just stop and let me know, but hopefully we can prove that we can do this smoothly in a virtual world. So with that, Steph, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Oh, did she say Seth or Steph? I don't know.
Go ahead, Steph. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're both like, yep.
All right. Thank you very much. I did say Steph, you're right.
Oh, okay.
So she said me. No, just kidding.
Do we have anyone in person or electronically send in citizens input this evening?
Nobody in person and nobody electronically.
No one there? I can see one head there.
No, nobody in person. He's for the next item on the agenda, and nobody emailed anything in.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Great. So with that, we have our first item, 705, Jake and Joe's application for change of manager. Is everyone ready in the room for that one?
Watch. Come to the microphone, please.
Sit down.
Which-
You can have a seat. Yeah, you can have a seat, Jeff. We have with us tonight Jeff Reddington, who is the proposed new manager for Jake and Joe's.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Great.
Thought you said Jeff say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I was a little worried about that. But didn't forget the words. So.
All right. So do you want to just let us know, what's going on up at Jake and Joe's and just give us an overview, and then we'll see if we have any questions for you?
Yes, so I'm the new general manager over at Jake and Joe's. I've been there since April 27th, so that was the end of April is when I started. We've been picking up as the COVID guidelines have opened up across the state. And with that, we've just had our number one priority to make sure guests are having a safe and fun time. We are a little short staffed, as you may know, with the restaurant industry. So training right now is paramount for us, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We are on the topic of the liquor license. So I myself, I'm ServSafe certified. I have been in the hospitality industry for 15 years. So I'm no stranger to a proper guest experience, and our staff is certified, and that's again just one of the number one priorities we have. We do. We also have we've had some recent additions to the restaurant. We did add a temporary patio. It runs parallel to our parking lot, if you guys are familiar with that. That is temporary. The plan is to take that down come the fall. I think it was the weekend of Columbus Day. So that will be not a permanent structure. That's pretty much it. I'm just happy that people are going out again, for sure. That's the Jake and Joe's update for you.
All right. Great. Any questions in the room?
Leah, I had a question.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I was just curious if you've made any changes from a strategic perspective or management perspective since you joined in April 27th from sort of the old guard to the new, and just, I'm not looking for anything in particular, just
Right.
your thoughts on.
Yeah, so I'm coming from a corporate environment.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Darden Restaurant Group, so I came from Yard House, which was, I was up in Burlington. So, just a lot of the day-to-day routines were kind of, heightened some awareness around, as far as in that, if you're familiar with restaurant
The Yard House?
Yeah, or just restaurant,
Oh, yeah,
day-to-day activities, just having more of a structured day.
Okay.
Start, we count the money certain times of the day, make sure we're there for the team at certain hours, we're there, in the office at certain hours, so just kind of getting more of a structured environment. And, the guest experience being the number one priority.
Right.
Is what I'm all about, so.
Got it. Great,
Bringing
thank
bringing that down there.
you.
So,
Yeah. Good, thank you.
Yep.
And also, Jeff, who is, so will the liquor license be kept in the same person who it's in now? Or was it the manager before? Will it be you at some point, or?
So the manager beforehand has left the company, so it
Yeah.
will be put into my name.
So that'll be the next step, you guys will be coming before us to apply, to request that as well?
Yes, isn't that what this?
That's the purpose of this
That's
tonight.
the purpose
Oh.
of this.
It's a
report.
change of
Oh,
manager.
okay.
Change of manager.
Yep.
Okay, I just saw change manager, I didn't see anything.
Yep.
Anything written here saying that we're also switching the license, so my mistake.
Any other questions? All right, and I don't think we mentioned it, but you know about Fox Cares too, the local group in Foxborough that's run by Tom at Tavolino. So if you don't know about it, just check in on that. I've seen your temporary patio. It's nice. Hopefully it stays.
Yes. Thank you.
But I know everyone's got business priorities and dealing with a lot right now. So thanks for hanging in there during a difficult time like this. And I don't think there's any questions. We're probably ready for a motion.
Okay. Motion to approve the change of manager for Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts, Foxborough, doing business as Jake and Joe's, from Frank Rokes to Jeff Reddington.
I'll second that.
All right, great. Any further discussion? And because we are remote tonight, because I am remote, even though everyone else is in person, we do have to take a roll call. So we're going to go in the order that you are seated in the room. So we'll go Seth, Steph, Ed, and then me. So if you can just say your name and then yes to take the vote for all items this evening.
So Seth Ferguson? Yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed O'Leary, yes.
Leah, yes. All right, great. Well, thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks, good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Good luck, Jeff.
All right, so next up, we have 7:10, but I see Lindsay is here, and I assume ready. Lindsay, is anyone else joining you, or is it just you tonight?
Just me today.
Okay, all right, great. So we have another kind of run-of-the-mill liquor license item tonight, which is NPS LLC, doing business as Gillette Stadium, change of hours for on-premises annual all alcohol beverage. So this gives them the ability to start serving food earlier on Sundays and certain legal holidays. So it takes it from noon to 10 a.m. So just like Jeff did, Lindsay, if you can just give us a really quick overview of what you're looking to do here, then we'll see if you have any questions and take a vote.
Yep, so it's basically super straightforward. We're just requesting to bump up that time. Nothing of our operation is going to change from before COVID. That's how we were operating in 2018 and 2019. So we're just asking that we bump up that actual license to, sorry, there's like a little message on the bottom.
Oh, yes. So this is a public hearing, so we do have to read a notice. I'm sorry for that, Lindsay.
No worries.
So we're just going to have Seth read the public hearing notice. I apologize. When you're ready, Seth.
So I'm opening up the document. And that's in the public hearing, change of hours, NPS.
Yeah, I have it open too. I can read it if you have any
I got
trouble.
it. So the Town of Foxborough public hearing, right? That's where, okay.
Yes, that's right.
The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 140, Section 181, and Section 183A, and Chapter 136, Section 4, Chapter 141 of the Acts of 2020, Code of the Town of Foxborough, Chapter 229, and also Stadium Rules and Regulations, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, July 6, 2021 at 7:10 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street. Meeting also being held virtually. Instructions to be provided when Board of Selectmen meeting agenda is posted. To review the application submitted by NPS LLC, doing business as Gillette Stadium, for the application of a change of hours of an on-premises annual all-alcohol beverage license. 1 Patriot Place, Foxborough, Mass. Manager James Nolan. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
All right, great. So, sorry.
So,
Just
Madam
happy-
Chair and members of the board, this item is just to add that this changes the hours of alcohol service as well as food. So, and the board will may be familiar with the fact that we do have a provision in the state statute that allows for communities to allow restaurants to serve prior to noontime. Typically, it will be a noontime opening for the license, but because but on Sundays and holidays you can actually serve from before noon until by 10 o'clock. No earlier than 10 o'clock by statute. So locally, the town has adopted this traditionally every single year since that has been adopted, and so this is, but it is something that the various license holders have to request as part of their license request every single year. So this is why they're here before you tonight.
And Lindsay, this is for the actual stadium, not for a restaurant on property. This is for the actual stadium. Is that correct?
Yep, it's for the stadium. And like Bill had said, this is what we had done in the past, and nothing about the gate times or anything like that's going to change. We're going to operate the same way that we've been before, but obviously this is kind of a housekeeping item that we want to come to the board.
Okay, great. I don't have any questions. Seth, staff, Ed, any questions in the room?
No.
What's that, Leah?
Anyone in the audience there? I know it's a public hearing before we close that out.
There's
I
no
think
one here at
Christina's
this point.
shaking her head no?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we just need a motion to close the public hearing. Seth?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? And we just need to roll call that, and then we'll go into a motion for the actual approval after this vote on the motion to close the public hearing.
Seth Ferguson, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed O'Leary, yes.
Leah, yes.
All right, so we'll move on to the motion.
Yes, please.
Motion to approve the application for change of hours for on-premises annual all-alcohol beverage license accompanied by food service from 12 p.m. on Sundays and on certain legal holidays to 10 a.m. on Sundays and on certain legal holidays.
And just under further discussion, I don't think we have Gillette Stadium in the motion, but that's what it's for, just to clarify it. Any further discussion? All right, I think we're ready for the roll call on the motion then.
Seth, yes.
Stephanie, did we second it? We seconded?
Oh, sorry, I don't
No,
think that.
you made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay.
Seth Ferguson, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed O'Leary, yes.
Leah, yes. All right, great. Lindsay, are you hanging on with us for the last item or the Monster Jam, or we don't need you for that, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. I didn't want you to hang on till the very end just in case you planned on it, so.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lindsay.
All right, so we are running right on schedule. The next item is Board of Selectmen committee member appointments. So you may remember that, you know, we renewed all the appointments last meeting, but there are some committees that we have to appoint someone from our board to. CIP committee, for example, that appointment ended June 30th. So we're back now to appoint one of the 5 of us. And I know historically it's been the chair. It's not written that it has to be the chair. And you know, my perspective is I like to spread the love and the duties and the roles and responsibilities within the board. So is there anyone interested in CIP and or audit committees on the board? I'm certainly happy to keep them, but if anyone is
Yeah,
interested in
I'd
this.
actually be very interested in the CIP.
Okay. Anyone for audit?
I'll take audit.
No one? You'll take audit, Ed? Okay. All right, great. So I think we need motions for those, right? I don't see a motion in here, but it's pretty simple then. If there's any further discussion, unless, Seth, if you were interested in either and we needed to discuss, or we want to let Steph and Ed take these two?
I would move to appoint Stephanie to the CIP committee.
All right, great.
I'll second it. Sounds kind of weird. for
Any
me
further
second.
discussion?
I am acting as doc tonight.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna move this appointment through June 30th, 2022. Would you agree, Bill? So we can close out budget season. That's typically when we're all done as we head into the July 1st new fiscal year.
That is correct.
Okay, so this appointment will go through June 30th, 2022, Christina, for the records. All right, so with that, I think we're ready for a roll call. We've had a motion, we've seconded it, clarified.
Seth is yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes.
Leah, yes.
I
All
move
right,
to appoint Ed O'Leary to the audit committee.
I'll second.
Under further discussion, Bill, is this also till June 30th, or will this be to June 1st, or May 31st, sorry?
I would make it till June 30th. I don't know that there is a reason to do it another time, but I think it's cleaner if you just do it by June 30th.
So all of our other appointments end May 31st. So unless there's something that would go with the fiscal year, I'd probably keep it at May 31st.
Well, the only reason why I was thinking, when I said make it cleaner, sometimes the audit comes in later than that.
Okay.
And so you may want to just leave that open until then for that reason.
Okay, sounds good to me. So it'll be till June 30th of 2022.
Yeah, sorry for that clarification.
All right, so we had a motion, we had a second, I think, unless I'm not tracking, we're
Agreed.
probably ready for a vote then, right?
Seth is a yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes.
Leah, yes. All right, so 725 boards and committee handbook. I'll probably hand this over to you, Mike. We had put this on here in case we were ready to approve it, but I do not believe town council has weighed in on this. So I think we'd be looking for a summary from you on what we've done here, maybe some of the changes that we have talked about, and then when we anticipate to hear back from town council, how this wraps into all the appointments we did last meeting.
Sure. What we did is we cleaned this up and modernized it. We did include several appendices in the back, the first of which lays out who the liaisons are to all the different boards, committees, and commissions. Another major thing that we included in here is, board, committee, commission member etiquette. So we're very clear on, rules of the road, so to speak, for employees, and that's reflected in our policies. And we've included some of those similar things that would apply to volunteers and elected officials, as anyone serving in any of these roles really is acting as an ambassador for the town, maybe on television, maybe approached by the press. And so we just want to be very clear about what the expectations of all of our board, committee, commission members, in addition to our employees, is. Minor differences with employees, but still the same responsibility to uphold the ideals of the town of Foxborough. So we did put also some guidelines on conducting meetings, some things to modernize as far as operating in the remote world, with virtual meetings and expectations. And the main point of that is that if you're operating remotely, just as you can see, Leah unexpectedly is joining this meeting virtually, but she's seated at a desk, she's prepared for the meeting, she's got all her notes, and dressed appropriately, acting appropriately, and that stuff is very detailed in here. In other words, you wouldn't do anything on camera at a virtual meeting that you wouldn't do here at a public meeting. So, appropriate language, appropriate dress, head to toe, no smoking, no eating or drinking, any of those things. And if somebody needs to leave this meeting while the thing's rolling, you do it while you're off camera, and to get a note or to use the restroom or whatever, it's the same. If you're in a virtual meeting, you take yourself off camera, and of course, when you're not speaking, you take yourself off of audio. Those are some of the big things. We also do document in here things that are kind of normal practice, but just to memorialize them. We've talked about posting agendas, attendance at meetings, record keeping, and the public records law, open meeting law, all those sorts of things. We also talk about the use of town council, how the only time that town council can be used is by going through the town manager. And that's really so that, so that there is a governor on, where and when that's being used. It's not to limit the use of council, because certainly there are times when we need to use that for limiting risk. But it's really so that the town manager, knows where the money's being spent and can account for it. Let's see. Conflicts of interest, nothing new there, but we do talk about it as far as, what the rules are, and again, that everybody, requalifies on that every year. And then, we've put some samples in the appendices here, Robert's Rules of Order. Again, nothing novel, but we've tried to put it all in one place so that anyone coming on to a board, committee, or commission has this all in one place, and it'll also be electronically on the website. Talk a little bit about social media as well as executive session, the expectations, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And then, the last appendix is one of the official holidays, and then a signature page on the back where anybody newly appointed to a board, committee, or commission would sign that. And we'll start by doing that, for current members as well. So that's kind of an overview, and that I would expect by your next meeting that we would have some feedback from town council. I would expect that this will go smoothly, but if he has guidance for us, then we'll fold this in and make changes as appropriate.
Mike, was there, I looked, but I didn't see it, but I may have missed it because there's a lot of information here. Is there anything about meeting attendance?
We did, so it wasn't initially in there, but that's one of the things that was in the old one, and we did fold that in. If that was the intention, it should be in there. If
Okay.
it's not, it certainly will be.
Yeah, I was, scanning over it all, and I may have just missed it.
That, when it was initially sent out, that was, prior to Friday. If you saw anything prior to Friday, it was not in there. Leah did bring that up at our pre-agenda meeting last week. So Katie did fold that in there, and I'll find
It
out.
is covered on page 5.
Page
Okay.
5, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of these are, they're all appointed by the Board of Selectmen or voted in. And of course, there's always, excusable absences. We just want to make sure that if somebody does want to make the commitment that, there's some type of reasonable, how many meetings you would miss. Now, in some of these committees, we're begging people to join, so it's not really, but if it's where there are a number of people that do come forward, and the chair or the committee is deciding who they think is the best fit, just to make sure that they're going to give as much of a commitment as they can. That's what I was just asking.
Sure.
So, and just to be specific, it does state in the last paragraph under the section appointment, reappointment, resignation, removal, it does state that in rare circumstances, unexplained absence of 3 or more instances during an appointment year, or conflicts of interest, the appointment authority may ask for a member's resignation. Prompt written notification to the committee member will be given by the appointing authority in the event of such action.
Perfect. Yeah, and I mean, listen, there's always, you know, every rule, there's a little bend there, you know, if somebody has a sickness and it, you know, it just goes on a little bit or something like that. I just wasn't sure if we had
That's
anything.
why we use
that
the
just-
term
yeah.
may as opposed to shall.
Yeah, yeah. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so our intent was to have this approved by town council by tonight, but we knew that it was kind of tight with the holiday and everything. So I don't believe, or I have not seen that town council has reacted to this or made any changes or blessed it. So we can either approve it pending their review, because I know we're eager to get the appointment letters out and get this up online and have people adhere, you know, acknowledge this as they're appointed. Or do we wait till the next meeting, Bill, after we've heard from town council and get the letters out then?
I would venture to guess, because this was actually a document that we utilized from another community. We took a lot of their information from that and then used this as a model, and folded a lot of this information into it ourselves. So if there's any changes at all, I would venture to guess to be minimal. So if you want, we can, I mean, we as the, you know, you as the board can approve it subject to any final changes by town council, and then just, and then move forward. I tried to reach town council today to see if I could get them to respond to this by today, but unfortunately I wasn't able to reach them. So, so it's entirely up to you. If you want to proceed that way, it's fine. It's, yep, entirely up to you.
She see me if I raise my hand?
I can see you.
Okay,
Yep,
thank-
Go ahead.
Is it okay? Okay, thanks. So just two thoughts around the document. I think it is improved with the additional content, and I think it's a great document and has the right information in there. The one thing that I'm thinking about is in terms of the tone of the document, what I would strive for, and I'm no editor by any means, but what I would strive for is, particularly if it's, you know, if there's in any way a legal document that has any kind of legal ramifications.
Ramifications, yeah? Implications, yeah.
I would strive for as professional and formal as possible and as neutral a tone as possible. And I think by and large, that is achieved. Just a couple of points as I read through it, and no offense to anyone who happened to write this, but certain things like be on time, early is on time is late, that is sort of a colloquialism, or, you know, it's just sort of an informal type of thing that perhaps is better worded in an official document like this. So that's just one thing. So if I could read through it, or however we want to, I don't have to, but it's just my.
I kind of agree with you, Seth, and that's the virtual meeting etiquette. To me, it was the part I especially wanted town council to weigh in on, because of like, this isn't time to multitask, or don't waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
You know, I see what you mean in that particular, I assume that's the section that you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at right now. That's what I just referenced. And the thing about wasting time, it's like, no one's joining a board to waste anyone's time. It's a little presumptive to think that anyone would want to waste anyone's time if they're volunteering, you know, so it's exactly, you're making the point, Leah, that I was getting across, so.
So those
Yeah,
points are,
that's the section I wanted town council to kind of look at in particular, as well.
okay. So those points are well taken. So in addition to getting feedback from town council, we will do that, is a little more of an official tone.
Yeah.
Take out, you know, that
Yeah.
sort of on-time stuff, and,
Yeah.
but deliver the same message, but
Right.
without insulting people.
Neutral tone, same
Sure,
message.
sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
That's fine.
And Leah, if I may, so that was one item, and then if I may, just on a second item that we chatted about briefly. On page 18, something that I thought was really interesting and probably useful point is the liaison with Board of Selectmen, where each year Board of Selectmen votes to assign each selectman to be a liaison to several town boards and committees. So I thought that is, so it's in the document. As a new person, I think that would be really impactful in helping me understand what the boards and committees one, what they do, and I can read the town report, which is really useful to understand what boards and committees are doing. Going forward, boards and committees exist to make change, suggest policy presumably, or even create policy in some instances where it's mandated by state statutes, what have you. But in order to understand the work that the boards and committees are doing and fold it into the work that we're doing as selectmen, I think that's a really impactful and great addition to this, whether it's been there the whole time, but I think that would be a good way to have the selectmen stay informed and sort of put a strategic lens on what the boards and committees are doing and making sure everything's aligned and heading in the direction that the town is intended. So that was just some feedback on that.
So this is, that particular section, and some others, are practices that do go on, but what we've done is we've captured a lot of those practices in a one document. Because this is what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I guess I'm raising my hand, like I would like to be a liaison to boards and committees that are, doing meaningful, important work, on behalf of the town, and I'd like to understand that and be able to be, either help them progress as with the work they're doing, or just help guide or be knowledgeable as a board member, so.
Perfect.
And I think this kind of ties back to the communication plan too. So, when we get the communication plan rolled out, hopefully there'll be more consistency with meeting minutes and people being able to subscribe to agendas and things like that. Because right now, it is a little haphazard outside of, the quote unquote main boards. What's being sent out to people, minutes available online. So hopefully as the communication plan rolls out this year, it'll be a lot easier for a liaison to track and keep with minutes, instead of having to, sit in every meeting. You can kind of, hopefully watch them on cable access or catch up with minutes or both.
So how would you like to proceed, Madam Chair?
I think that I don't think every board needs a liaison. Like, I think we kind of have to group them together. Like what's almost like Christina did in the town report. So what's police and fire, or what's recreation, council on aging, kind of lumped together. What's planning, what's conservation, and maybe group them together like that. And then have us take boards. Does that sound like something we'd like to do?
I can do that. I can send out a list and see who's interested in what, and then try to make it even and fair. And if there's any overlap, have a discussion about that and make a decision at our next meeting.
Yeah, and I think there's some that, we probably don't need a liaison for. I'd say it's probably more like half or 3/4. Or maybe it's, inviting certain boards to come in with an update throughout the year. Maybe it's just them sending a written report. So thoughts on that, Seth?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Those are great ideas, Leah, and there are several committees that I read about in the town report that I'm not really sure what they're working on. And their name, the work that they are intended to do is generally in the name, if it's a fields committee or something. But if they're spending time and energy to, with work to move forward with certain initiatives. I just wanted to, I think we should be aware, but yeah, to your point, I think those, if there's written liaison type documentation that they send in, I mean, sometimes some of these committees may not meet on a super regular basis, so every 6 months to a year, or whatever is appropriate, depending on the board or committee. So I think that's fair as far as a plan.
In this past year, we had the department heads coming in. I thought that was great, especially nobody knew that COVID was going to last what it did, but it was nice for us to just have a pulse on what was going on and how COVID was really affecting
Yeah.
some of the works of
Yeah.
departments in town, so it was, I found it very useful.
So is
we
that a
got
little
to have
different,
them come in.
Stephanie, as department heads versus boards and committees, so, or is it
Yeah,
just
well,
all
yeah,
combined?
but that was just, yeah, I
Yeah.
was just saying that it was nice
Yeah.
for them to come in and for us, to and so then maybe for us, whether it's us doing the reach out to them and, you know, being assigned, and then come back, almost like how we did on advisory committee, then, so we all don't have to reach out and then come
Yeah.
back and give a nice summary to the rest of the board.
Yep,
So we
liaison
all,
concept.
yeah, so we all have an idea what's going on.
That
Another,
could even be a nice way to wrap it together. So I think we're gonna have all the department heads come in this year. We're gonna pick that back up again. So maybe once we make, you know, if you look at the last, or I think it's Appendix A of the boards and committee document, departments are responsible for each of the committee as like a liaison. So maybe we could even make that part of their department head update, is giving like a board, you know, if a chair of a board wants to come in, or if they want to give an update on their behalf, because some of them may be more lengthy than others. You know, that's a way that we could work in that update as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think I like that. I think that's probably the most time efficient way for everyone to hear from those committees through whoever their assigned liaison is. And then if they want to come in, you know, we can certainly do that. So maybe Seth, I don't know if you want to take this offline, and, you know, I don't want to put this on your lap, but I think it's a great idea. And like I said, I like us all having certain projects instead of, you know, kind of me just dictating what we're doing. So do you want to take that and kind of give it some thought and talk to them and maybe come back to us with what you'd like to propose, and we can see if it all works?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, great.
And you know what, Leah,
So I think-
can I make a suggestion too? If I can hear a little bit of hesitation of us voting on this tonight from you, and a little bit of hesitation.
Yeah, I
from
don't think,
Seth.
I'm not ready to vote tonight. I
Yeah,
don't think.
I was gonna say, what's the harm in letting town, you know, I mean, it's vacation week, you know, the fact that Bill couldn't get a hold of him today, I mean, you know, I don't think it's gonna be, any big deal if we wait till next meeting to actually take a vote, and then.
There's no rush. There's
Yeah,
no
then we
rush.
could have just the stamp of approval there too.
Yeah, and just know for anyone that's watching this that is on a board or committee that was reappointed, you know, you'll be getting those letters in the next couple of weeks. You'll come in and get sworn in. This will be part of it. You'll be able to review it online. So just know that that'll be coming. And I think if you are a chair, this is going to be a great reference for you to do your job too. There's sample agendas. You know, there's a lot of, besides it being, you know, here's a social media policy and civility and all that, it's a great resource for people who may be new or old chairs to just have everything in one place. And I think we're going to do chair training too. We kind of talked about maybe formally doing something where if someone's a new chair to a board or committee, or maybe has never done training, we talked about maybe doing that in September with town council as well. And that could be open to anyone. Maybe someone who's a vice chair or wants to be a chair one day, you know, to come to that training. I think there's no harm in coming to that.
One thought we had about training is that we would actually do a live session, but tape it, and then that way, anybody who couldn't see it could actually see it. You know, we'll provide the access to it online, so they can see it that way.
Yeah, we can post that right on the same link with
Right.
everything under boards and committees. So I'm excited about getting some of that chair training. I know, you know, when you're new, and especially some of these smaller boards and committees, there's, you know, you don't have the town manager sitting in the meeting with you, kind of helping you move things along. So I think the training will be a good thing for many people.
And we'll be prepared at your next meeting to talk a little bit more about, you know, what the structure of that training would look like.
Okay, great. So let's make that an agenda item for next week to get a save the date out to folks. I think we're thinking after the summer, it will be a little bit too hard, I think, to wrangle people together. Maybe do this in September, once everyone kind of gets back to business, and get a save the date out there, and then get this handbook approved.
Great, thank you.
All right. So I think we're ready to move on to the next item, which is town trash discussion. So we had a citizen come in under citizens input and talk about town trash. And as many of you know, during citizens input, we can't respond or have any sort of discussion. So since a citizen brought this to us, I thought it was worth putting on our agenda just to talk about. I don't think that the intent here is to go this way or that, but to react to what the citizen brought up and talk about options and, you know, do we want to do anything? Do we not want to do anything? So I think I'll turn it over to Bill if you're ready, just to kind of kick off that discussion.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So, trash is an interesting topic because it is one that has many different options associated with it. I've worked in a few communities where trash has been handled in multiple different ways. In Foxborough is somewhat unique in the sense that trash is handled entirely by the individual homeowner or business owner, in which they contract directly with the individual to do the work. In two of my previous communities, the town itself contracted with the service and provided the service, and the cost of the service was rolled into the tax rate every year. To do that now is a very expensive proposition, since it's probably, I'd venture to guess that to do trash in this town, you're probably looking at about a $1.5 to $2 million venture to do that, which in and of itself would be a very significant impact on the budget. Wouldn't be something that you would have available in the existing funds, but probably would require an action by the town to do either an override or to defer it to a different method, fee-based system, et cetera. So I've worked in a community where it was a fee-based system, where they collected so much from each household per year to pay for the recycling and trash disposal, and then each individual for the actual collection aspect of it, and then there was a fee for each bag of trash that was disposed of. So that was a different approach. It was actually one that I actually have myself in the community I live in now, and it works pretty seamlessly. It's a pretty good system. And then the third option that would be one that would be of consideration would be one in which the town could in fact go out to bid for on behalf of the homeowners to try and secure a bid for services for the homeowners to have, so that they could actually still contract with the service, but it would be contracted so potentially it could reduce the rate at which the cost would be to the resident or to the business person. So those are several options. I think it's something that bears further discussion, and I'm not in a position to recommend one way or the other at this point in time. Obviously, this is a first discussion point, but it's one that requires probably several individuals to discuss. And I would recommend that we perhaps have a group of folks get together and discuss this to come back with some recommendations for everyone. It is I will say that having the service where the town contracts for it and pays for it is burdensome at best, because, and it also it really has brought to mind in my own experience an equity issue, because you have situations where you have 1 and 2 person households paying effectively the same rate for people who have 5, 6, 7 people in the household. So you're effectively financing those individuals in that situation. So it raises that equity issue, whereas if you contract for it individually, you pay for the service that you get. And it sort of equalizes that way out. There are also situations where people will, in some instances, and it's unfortunate to say this, but there are people that will take advantage of the trash system and put in items that they'll take items from other locations and put it on the side of the road and have somebody pay for it, and guess who's paying for that? The residents of Foxborough. So I think the system you have now is good for that reason, because effectively people don't do that unless, and they know that they're going to pay for it. In fact, if somebody puts somebody out on the curb that doesn't belong to them. So there are different things to talk about, and I think that's why it's difficult to come up with any kind of recommendation tonight, but at least out of consideration and respect for the request that was to at least discuss it, I think it's a very fair and equitable, a fair and reasonable request to at least evaluate it and to consider whether or not the town itself is interested in pursuing it further. So.
Agree, and I think that the main thing I have heard, and I don't want to put words in the community's mouth, but I think, what can we do as a town to make sure that we get good service and the best rate possible? So, right now where citizens are on their own, kind of prices keep increasing, which I understand the prices of recycling and disposal are increasing, but what can we do to use our group purchasing power to hopefully get a better rate, lock in a better rate, and maybe even, get some better service.
Right.
I think that's kind of the gist of it. So I don't think that, at least for me, I don't think that we're looking to put this back in the town budget and kind of reverse necessarily fully what we've done, but how can we improve the process and step in almost as a liaison to make this better for the community? So maybe we have a little bit more research to do on those options, Bill, and then, maybe we come back in a month or so after we've done that and have a further discussion.
I do, like I said, I do think that it bears further discussion and consideration, because there is something to be said about looking at possibility of us bidding it. Now, I will bring to everybody's attention, though, that was done several years ago. And what came out of that, though, because the town doesn't have a bylaw or limitation on this, what happened was when the low bidder actually secured the contract, another individual from Foxboro actually came in and underpriced the individual who got the contract and drove the person out of town. So when that happens, of course, then you have, and now that individual is no longer in that business. So so now we're left with a situation which we have very little control over as a town, because we don't have any sort of contract in place. We have a limited contract in place, but very, very little control over the service itself. So I do think there is something to be said about that. So
when does our contract for the town service, I'm not talking the residents, curbside, but for the town service?
that ends of next year, I believe. This is the last year of that service. So
Okay, so we should, think about that
right.
with this as well. I mean, does anyone on the board there have strong feelings one way or the other? We can do a little bit of research and then come back and have more of a discussion on this one.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, Seth, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I think, there's a reason why I came forward. We always talk about services and, the one thing is this service would just about be for everybody. If you live in an apartment or something and the owner there, a lot of times, I don't even know, would an apartment, their trash be picked up by the town? Or
No, typically they would contract for that separately.
they would contract themselves. I've never rented an apartment myself, so I just wasn't sure. I'd like to see us look to see, where we are and where our budget is going. I know it's hard to look at that after us going through a COVID year and trying to tighten things up. But, this is a service that would be for all the taxpayers in town. I understand what Bill said. You can't just say, okay, there's 6 people live in this house and 2 people live in this house, so how do you do that? But if we did, something like your first barrel, and then, and then stickers after that, or something like that, I know, we'd have to investigate it a lot. I know what you mean. It's not like tonight I don't have an exact direction myself tonight. I'd like us to explore it and see what it would cost the town for us to give, 1 barrel of trash per household, eventually. That's where I am with it anyhow.
As
Go ahead, Seth.
somebody that, excuse me 1 second, as somebody that has used the town's trash system for, 35 plus years, the one thing that I think that the vendors have done is to separate very clearly items that are trash from those that can be recycled.
Mhm.
And I think that's a plus
Right.
by having that type of operation,
Mhm.
both for not just the people that live in Foxborough, but people around all the communities to properly recycle materials. And I don't know whether a town-only option would have that flexibility that I see from a private vendor that was very attractive to, yes, we've paid a little more, but I like the idea of the service.
Well, there's something to be said about the fact that if you're paying for the service, that you're going to do a better job if you're paying less for recycling than you are for trash. So, because trash is very expensive to dispose of right now, and as well as recycling is not all that great either, but it is better. That being the case, if you're the one paying the bill, you're going to be very mindful of your practices. As a result, you're less likely to do that if somebody else is perceivably paying for the bill. Indirectly. So I'll share you my experiences because I've lived through that and I've seen it. I've seen real severe abuses of it, and I've seen situations where it's worked really well. I would say, generally speaking, the system here works well. But I do think that having a little bit more control over the process, having either a bylaw or a process in place which would give the benefit of a buying power to the resident is a good thing, and something we should explore, because I do think that's probably your most cost-effective approach of doing that at this point in time without causing huge disruption process in the budget process.
Go ahead, Seth.
So if I could I just was looking for a little clarity on one of the options that you laid out, Bill. So similar, so we have a model in town for electricity where we can
Yep.
opt in. So is one of the options that sounds somewhat appealing to me is if we as a town negotiate with a vendor for what would likely be a sort of a group rate, and townspeople could opt in if they chose to, because it looked like a better rate, and so people would still have choice, and would still be paying, and would still have sort of that skin in the game that you were talking about.
Right.
But conceivably get a better rate than they'd get on their own.
Right.
Is that something?
Yeah, something like that would be exactly right. I was thinking exactly along those lines, where
Okay.
you could opt in, but you would have to commit to it for a 3-year period, because the reason I say that is because it costs money for the contractor to set up the route here. And so he has to know what his bottom line is going to be each year. And with the cost of trash fluctuating the way it is, if you don't have some commitment as to what your customer base is, it can have a real bad effect on your bottom line if you don't watch that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, similar to phones or cable, where they get a better rate and you got to commit to a certain amount of time. That's part of the
That's right.
It's part of the model, so it's to be expected.
And actually, off of what Ed said, I was still thinking of, most of the companies offer recycling. So it wouldn't be just like, we're not gonna recycle. I wouldn't go for anything with that, just because how it is now, recycling, and people are used to it. I will say that before UMM came in, or even before it was Dooley, before UMM, in Summerfield, we had three different companies coming in. That's, we weren't part of the town system at one point, and then I think somebody, came up and asked, and they're like, yeah, we can get you in with the town service. But the one thing I did find, and it is a incentive for people to recycle, is I was able to go to a one bag service because of the recycling. The company we originally had didn't recycle, and so all your trash was in one. And then we went to a company, so it cost me just maybe, if you looked at your quarterly bill, was just slightly a little bit higher, but I wasn't having to pay for a second bag because I was recycling. So I think, to your point, Bill, where there are some people that aren't going to care and just throw everything in. But if it was that the town was only picking up one trash barrel, I think you would still get people to recycle, because if they're going to go above, then they're going to have to either buy tags or pay for two barrels a week instead of one barrel. So I think if we do even look into it, it's got to be something that has recycling as part of it, which I think most of them do.
Well, I think you're required to by law now in
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
yeah.
You're required to.
But I think that does keep people a little bit honest, about, about recycling, because otherwise your trash is gonna double. I was amazed when we were able to switch to recycling, how much my trash got down, because our original company didn't, we just, everything went into the trash. And then I said, oh my good, my trash is really, you don't realize what you can recycle, so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, I think everyone realizes in this day and age, we're gonna have to pay for trash. It's just a matter, maybe if we pay privately or if we bring the service back to get some kind of bulk discount, and still pay that maybe to the town, but have some increased, KPIs like you talked about, staff, maybe hold the trash company to some standards and get us, some kind of bulk rate and guarantee the vendor, a majority of routes as well. So I think this is something that would probably take a year or two, to get going, but these are the discussions to kick it off and see where we want to go. So if we can keep this one on the agenda, for the next month or two after we do some investigation and come back with some real options and see where we want to go with this one.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I had on it.
All right, great. So the next item, sorry, I'm just flipping back to my agenda, is Bill's goals. So we started this discussion last week, or sorry, 2 meetings ago, but I don't think that we were ready to vote on it yet. We have a draft of the goals for 2022. I'm pretty comfortable with them. Did you have the communications plan in there, Bill? I know it was a
Yes.
document.
It was in there. Should be under.
So the first document that was in board docs, Seth and others that looked in advance had the 2021 goals and then the 2022 goals. So
Yes,
you could see
it's-
what changed. And I had asked, can we get a clean document with just 2022? So that can be the document that we approve and, continues with us throughout the year. So that's what's in board docs here. But
So if you look under goal 2, promote and enhance communication through community engagement, under B, it says finalize the town's communication strategy.
Okay, all right, great. That's obviously, one of my big goals. So, Seth, I think I'll turn it over to you first to get your thoughts. I'm okay with what we see here. We have the same 4 main goals, but we've taken out, revised, and added some of the sub goals within and tried to condense them down a little bit. So I'll get your reaction first, Seth, and see if you're okay with this or have any comments.
Yeah, I think, so I looked at the version with the 2021 to the 2022, and so you could see that they were condensed and sort of slimmed down to a more manageable set of goals and objectives. And everything looks reasonable and aligned with the direction of that we're trying to move for the town, broadly speaking. So I think everything looks solid from my perspective.
Staff, Ed, I'll let you guys, have whatever,
Yeah,
where you want to go in. Any
The only
comments?
one, I mean, like Seth said, we did some, I found, when I was doing Bill's evaluation, there were some that I just felt didn't really fall under him. I know when we put them together. So the only one that I still thought maybe a little sketchy to be under Bill was, let's see, promote modern professional town operations. The continue to support policy makers and planning director in the efforts for the housing production plan. I'm just not really sure if that's Bill's goal or if that really is still just Paige's goal. I mean, we don't even have, I mean, we've seen it in draft form. I'm just wondering if that's a little premature, only because I feel like this goal is saying for him to support it, where some of the discussion, when Paige came before us, listen, I don't talk to everybody around town, but a lot of people I've talked to don't really support the housing production plan in its draft form. So I feel like we're asking Bill to support it, and I'm just not even sure if the people in town support it. I'm just not sure if that's a goal for Bill or if that just is a goal just for Paige and the planning board to work on that. So, I don't know, Bill, how do you feel?
Well, the way I understood it was my role is to support the efforts. It's not to support the policy. I mean,
Okay.
so in other words, in the event that the planning director needs assistance in writing grants or promoting grants or writing letters of support, or providing communication or information on various aspects of the town's efforts here, I'm there as a resource to serve as the policy ultimately comes down to the town and the board's to make that policy. I'm there to support the effort, not to define it.
Yeah, this is one, I'm okay with it going away, but I will say when I did Bill's review last year, I actually called out in praise that he, didn't push it through and adjusted to what citizens were saying and the pace that the project was going in and supported the efforts in that way. So, from what I understand, we do need a housing production plan for certain grants. So we as a town do need a housing production plan. The debate is what's in that housing production plan. So we can have a housing production plan that says we're going to do nothing, and then we check the box, we have a housing production plan. So from what I understand, Bill, I still think we need one. It's just a matter of what is in it is
So
what you need to support, Paige.
if you look at goal 4, it's under subsection E. It says continue to support policymakers and the planning director in the efforts to create and implement a successful housing production plan. So it's not to actually define the plan. It's not or to tell people what the plan's going to be. It's to support the efforts.
So I think Steph, you're confusing a little bit what's in the plan with having one, because we do need one to get certain grants. Like, with certain grants, you need to have certain things in order to kind of pass go. So I don't want to confuse this with the content of a housing production plan,
Okay.
but just
Yeah,
that
exactly.
we do need one down the road. And I think the shelf life is like 5 or 10 years, but it's not to be debated with what's within.
Okay.
Is that okay by you? As long as you understand that? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I just felt that, that was kind of really fell under Paige. There were a couple, with your goals last year that I think when we were doing, I think even when you and I talked, I just kind of said, I didn't really have, a way to score you either way, because I just felt like it just wasn't yours, and I know we've cut those out. So that one in my head, I just felt like that was to implement that successful housing production plan. I think maybe I didn't read the front of it as much, other than to implement a successful
Right.
housing production plan. I just thought that would fall into Page.
Okay.
So I'm okay, either way. I just thought that should be a Page goal myself.
All right, Ed, any comments?
No, I feel
Okay.
that Bill
Okay,
has
great.
capacity to come up with ideas for the community and to see them through. And I felt that it was appropriately discussed when we did his evaluations. So,
All right, great. So I think the only one in my eyes under discussion of the one that we were, just talking about the housing production plan. I'm okay with it staying or going, Bill. I don't know if you feel passionately either way, want to approve this as is, or if you want to remove that one.
I'm fine with leaving it in, only because for the main factors, I want to be able to support Paige in her efforts. And I think it's important that she knows she can turn to me, and I'm going to do that for her as the day-to-day operations person. So I see that as something that we talked about actually today about something associated with that she needs me to help write a letter for. So I'm happy to continue in that effort to support that role. But again, ultimately, the policy falls to the policymakers, being the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, et cetera. So the ones that are going to define how housing is going to be built in the community.
All right, great. And like I said, just from my perspective, I commended Bill, that he was able to bend and flex on that particular goal. So you can still be successful at something if it doesn't work out the way you thought at the end of the year, if you did the right thing. Yes, Seth?
So it's just a suggestion then, perhaps we could leave it in. It sounds like there's actual work to do behind that from Bill's perspective. Over time, perhaps there's less work for Bill to help with the creation and implementation. And potentially that becomes sort of a NA or not applicable at a certain point. And even if it's this year, if it's on there and he has the ability to implement and provide support, it sounds like there is work there. So potentially we leave it in, and then as it becomes less meaningful, we could back off of it. Next
I
year,
like
the
that
year after.
suggestion.
Well, we actually do a 6-month review anyways, so we see how things are going, and at that point, I'll give you an indication of where things are going. At some point, but as Leah correctly points out, we really do have to have a plan. So the question is, if there are things in the plan that people disagree with, well, the plan could say X. We can't do Y, obviously, so we have to at least put the plan together that the community can live with.
Yeah, and it sounds like Paige needs the support.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think for me, I went to a couple of the meetings, and I said it right here, two-page. There was a lot of that plan that I myself did not support at all, and I know a lot of people that didn't. So I guess maybe that's why, as I read it, I don't want to be that that Bill is getting behind this plan. Like you said, the people are gonna decide. But the plan as the draft we had seen, I know a lot of people didn't support it. So that's why I was like, Paige needs to take the info that's given to her and work her magic, because that's her job. And when I read it, I kind of felt like what we had done was what we want to push forward. And I just didn't feel that was what I heard at some of the meetings. So maybe I just read it wrong, compared to how Bill is explaining it, like why he wants to. I just kind of read it like the plan we have in draft form. That isn't something I personally want to see push forward. I think that plan needs a lot of work.
So
Yeah,
maybe
I don't wanna
I
get
read it.
they're two different things.
I
mean,
read it wrong.
The plan as written is one thing, that's something still left for debate, and I think that's still being evaluated. But it's the effort to develop a plan is really the key. And that's where my role comes in with Paige.
Okay.
Or if we don't need one. So I don't want to get down a rat hole in the content of the housing production plan, because I don't think that's what the goal is. It's
Right.
it's about making it whatever is right for the town, whatever that is. And this is by no means meant that Bill's goal is to push or approve the
Yeah,
housing
and
production plan.
I think maybe that's where, for me, it didn't sit well, because and that's just my opinion. What I didn't support it, and I just felt like when I read it through, it was almost like, okay, well, so I may have been putting the two things in my head together, and.
I think if the goal had been that the town manager shall support the housing production plan as written, that'd be a different discussion. I mean, but that's not what we're talking about here at this point. It's just more or less producing the document itself, and then providing it as a sample document for the community to debate and decide which is what you want to do. We don't get involved in the debate part of it, we provide you the information and the resources.
So the only thing I think that we're missing here, and I definitely found myself going back and looking at this last year, Mike, was the dates at the top of the town manager goals and objectives. So we had the date that the Board of Selectmen approved it, and then we had the date of the review period on here. So, does it make sense that it's July 1st to June 30th? We talked a lot about when does this end, and with the board turning over, do we want to keep this happening, in a certain month? I'm kind of indifferent. Whatever you recommend, I'm okay with, but I do want to shore up the date that this is approved on the document and the date of the review period on the document.
Sure. So, I think we just need to pick up from the day after his last review and then
Yep.
go to what the board and Bill decide, whether that's June 30th or, in the past, I think we talked about his had gone the 12-month period, April to April, because that's when he had initially been hired, but it doesn't necessarily have to follow that. But we do have to pick up from the day after his last evaluation finished. That's the starting point, and I think the board and Bill could decide whatever's best, and then we can put those dates up there so that's filled in and clear.
So I think that was
Okay,
like
great.
around
Yeah, I just
May
want to
15th.
memorialize it on the document because I myself found myself going back to look at the dates a couple times when I was doing the review during the year.
So one suggestion might be that you make the goals effective from June 1st through May 31st. Does that work?
Yeah, if someone rolls off the board though, that's the only thing is they will miss the review period and the new person who's elected in May would likely come on.
So how that worked this past year is that Chris actually did the evaluation, but turned it in afterwards.
Did it go till May though? I'm trying to look up my document real quick. I feel like it might
I
have
think
gone.
I think it went to April 30th, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it went to
Yeah.
April 30th, so we'd just be
Right.
pushing it a month.
Yeah.
as
So the question is,
long
do you
as-
want to
as
go
long-
to a different month, different lineup? It doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you want to go to April 30th, it's fine with me, because, we're already well underway in a lot of these things anyway, so.
What's the date on your contract, Bill? I think it should align to,
It's June 30th. It's July 1st through June 30th.
okay. So I mean, I think it makes sense to go to June 30th, but, because that's, well, no, let's leave it. I think May 30th makes sense, or May 31st.
Yeah.
That's my take on it, if everyone's okay with that, just adding those dates to it.
Yeah, because even if I become eligible for an increase, it isn't effective until July 1 anyways.
Yeah, I like that timing.
And it pushes for a whole month later of whoever.
Past town meeting.
If somebody is going off the board,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean they still can't do it, but I think
Right.
the timing, even though Chris technically was off the board,
He still did.
The whole year, yeah.
He still does the evaluation,
Yeah,
so that's not.
exactly.
So I think, it gets you past town meeting, which is always important too, because, you don't want to be doing that, and we were kind of rushing through it to get through it before town meeting. So if you get past town meeting, you do the review, it's effective, through May 31st, and then, you do the evaluation period through June. It's done.
Yeah, it always felt clunky having the review period end right in the middle of budget season, like hot budget season. So I think May 31st makes sense. So if we can, add the date that we approved it and the date of the review period to this, I'm okay to approve this as is.
Okay, I'll add those.
So do you need a
All right.
motion to that effect? or-
Yeah,
Ready, Leah?
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 town manager goals as appended with the dates just discussed.
A second.
Any further discussion? All right, let's take a roll call vote.
Seth is yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes.
Leah, yes. All right, great. So now we're on to assistant town managers update, and then we'll go right into Bill's town managers update.
We just had one notary services update. I'm sorry, that's on sorry about that. Apologize.
Sure, just two recent hires I want to tell you about, and then I want to talk a little bit about notary services. So, last couple of meetings, we've talked about payroll administrator position as one that we've had advertised, and one of the other ones being the benefits administrator. So last week, Melanie O'Regan started, 2 weeks ago, as our payroll administrator, and today, Julie Lavoie started as our benefits administrator. So we're really happy to welcome them on board, and they've already hit the ground running. I haven't had a chance to check in with Julie today because it's been a pretty busy day, but I've had a number of interactions with Melanie, and she's working really hard and working out really well for the town. So we're very happy to have both of them on board. Notary services is the one other update I wanted to give. And so notary services is a service that we provide through the town clerk's office, and it is it's a courtesy service. So in other words, the town is not required to provide this service, but it's something that that the town clerk's office does want to provide, and that we in the administration feel that it is, worthy of providing. And and we talked it over with Leah last week during our meeting, and she did agree, but really said this is something that needs to go back to administrative. This is an operational issue. So we're working with the town clerk's office. We're all headed in the right direction, and as many of you or any of you that were looking for notary services over this past year might have found, we had to suspend those services, one because of building closure, two because of just being able to provide the minimum required services. That's what we were focused on. Now we're at a point where we want to open up those services as much as we can within what's allowed by statute. And so the town clerk, Bob, has put some guidelines together. We're going to take and put those out. He'll have them on the window at the town clerk's office. We'll also put them up on the website. But the one thing that he's requested is that this is something that they do in addition to their regular required services. So if folks wouldn't mind just calling ahead to make an appointment, and they'll have somebody ready in the town clerk's office ready to work with folks. And at that time, they'll let you know what you need to bring in, and review briefly over the telephone, what kind of documents that they can notarize, and then answer any questions that residents may have in that regard. So this discussion has come up at this time because we found out that actually Bob found out through his organization that that insurance costs were going up, and notary services are one of the things that weren't going to be caught under our regular insurance liability umbrella. And that's same across the state, so it's not just us. So what we did is we did three things in preparing to reopen our notary services that we know that many of our residents do turn to us for. Although these services are also available in banking institutions and other places, we're one of the places that the people can turn. So the one thing we did is we turned to our town council to find out, what's required, what is not allowed, and then what are other people doing that he's representing. We asked Bob to go out to other towns within his association and find out, what are other communities doing and how are they doing it. And then the third thing we did was reached out to Maya, which is our insurance provider, to find out, what's really going on and why is it happening. So we did find out from town council that in fact we're not required to provide this service as we are with many of our other services. But that within that, if we choose to do that, we could charge a fee for those services. We could request donations for those services, or we could provide them as part of the services that that we provide to the general public as part of their tax rate. The second thing, Bob, along with Katie from our office, went and reached around through his association and through Katie's contacts through the executive assistant world to find out what other communities are doing. And we found that most other communities similar to us are providing these services or preparing to reopen those services. And most, but not all, are not charging a fee for them. And the third thing we did is we got a price from Maya, who is not directly providing this, but they've got a third-party insurer that is going through them providing the service. And we found out that this service, the insurance premium for the year is $932. It's something we haven't paid before. But in talking it over with our office, we think that this is something that we would like to provide to the community. And at this point, we're not looking to charge an extra fee to do that. We think that's part of basic services we would like to provide, even though that's not required. With that, I would take any questions you might have.
Do you require proof of residency?
Good question. Let me look at his guidelines.
I think you provide a license. I think you have to provide a license when you do it.
You do have to provide a government-issued ID. I don't know if he specifically says on there, does the address have to show that it's in Foxborough? That,
Yeah, if it's an out-of-town service, out-of-town, I'm not sure it should be free. If
Right,
we're
that's what I'm
providing it,
getting
yeah,
at.
if we're providing it, so that's a good, fair point.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, say you
Point.
go over to the bank, if you're a customer there, do they do it for you for free if you're,
I think it's $3, something like that.
okay, something,
Yeah.
like,
It's a-
like I know, just for example, TD Bank, because I've been a customer there for a long time, maybe it's, how much business you do with them, whatever, like, they don't charge me for bank checks. Where if you came in, if you're someone else, I think they're $7. So I've never had anything notarized there. I didn't even realize we did it here, but I was just curious if you went to the bank, is it free too? Is that why
So it's-
somebody would come here?
Sure, so I can answer that question for you. Most banks, you'll get it for no charge or a nominal charge. Like Bill said, $3. My bank is no charge because I have an account there. But we had somebody come recently who, because we had closed that service during COVID, they had to go elsewhere, and it cost them $10 because their bank was not open, so they went to another bank, they didn't have an account. So some places you may pay $10 for that service. So, I think that's reasonable that we, and I will talk this over with the town clerk and also run it past town council to make sure we're not running afoul and all there. But I mean, it seems reasonable if tax money is paying to provide this service, that it should be residents and taxpayers and resident businesses that are
Yeah, I
getting
think
that
it's nice
service
that
at no
if it's
cost.
not required of us, but we feel like it's just been a nice service that we have provided, that we do continue it, but I think it's nice of Bob's office and Mike, you put this together and say, okay, let's just do it for the residents, even though we don't necessarily have to. It's a nice touch too. And just off a little bit, quick question, just because I know there was something they dropped. Are we going back with passport service at all, or, I just know that dropped to,
We could be getting back to that, just that we've had a change in staff recently, so
Yeah.
we need to train those folks in order to
Yeah.
provide that service. So it may take a little longer than we
Yeah.
have, but because we have to train.
just out of curiosity, kind of a little off that subject, but just
Yeah.
something that I know we went off because of COVID and staffing and whatnot, just
Right.
wondering if it was eventually gonna come back.
Yeah, and that's one that it would be a while, because the training and testing for that is a bit extensive, because they've got to, it's got to be, there's some requirements that we'd have to go through to do that, but, so.
But I think it's important to note, though, that the notary service will not be in place for all documents. For instance, one of the reasons why there was some hesitancy towards doing it from Town Clerks Association perspective was that there were a couple cases where communities they tried to hold communities liable for providing the service to notarize closing documents for certain situations. And for whatever reason, the situation went bad, and then they tried to hold the town accountable for the notary service. So that's why there is insurance coverage now for that type of thing. But it's also because, we're trying to limit the exposure on that by not notarizing every document that comes through. So there'll be some limitations to that.
Yeah, so when that guidance is put out, at the town clerk's office and on the website, it'll have some of the details on, what's needed and what can be provided. And the same thing from the insurance world, they're exposed, and when they start getting town clerks and other notaries in municipalities called into court, not that they're, providing any legal advice or anything like that on a notary, they're just watching somebody's signature and making sure that the ID matches. But there have been people subpoenaed into court. Did you check an ID? And so there's kind of the risk.
Yep.
And that's all I have for an update.
All right, great. Bill, anything for yours?
Just a few things. So as you might notice, there's a lot of people taking vacation right now. It's the end of the fiscal year, so it's Happy New Year. We're in a new fiscal year. Fiscal '22 has actually officially begun. There is a meeting with Congressman Auchincloss on Thursday of this week at 3 o'clock. I know members of the board will be in attendance, along with the planning director, town engineer, and DPW director, myself and Mike, for an opportunity to meet with him and then to review the earmark that he's been sponsoring in Congress for about $2 million, which will help with the Walnut Street intersection. So we'll be taking care of that on Thursday this week. Also, those folks in town, that we're looking for fireworks at Gillette Stadium on this weekend. Obviously, the weather didn't cooperate on July 4th, so they were moved to July 24th, as I understand it. So, which is really the official start date of the NFL training camp. So anybody who's interested in seeing those, anybody in the community who's interested in seeing those, that's the new date for, weather permitting, of course, for the fireworks here in Foxborough. And Jess at the stadium, who was going to be here tonight, is about to have a new addition in her family. So we want to wish her all the best. Hopefully things will go well for her over the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll wish her all the best and hope that everything works as planned. Okay, that's my update, Madam Chair. I am away, like I said, next week for the whole week, and we'll be out of state, but my phone's always on, as you know, so if you need to reach me, feel free to call me.
Leave you alone.
All right, great. I could be losing it, but did we announce, I know we sent an email out to all the boards, that the save the date for the financial summit of October 13th? Did we publicly get that date out there?
I think we did.
I can't remember if we did or not, but anyway,
I
we already
I
did.
received
We
a
did
save
save a
date
date,
on
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know we sent it out internally, but I don't know if we've announced it at the Selectmen's meeting. But it's definitely in my calendar. All right. Next is Selectmen's update. So, Bill, why don't you give us the CIP update that's here as well?
Okay, so the CIP plan that was, I'm actually going to defer that to Mike, because Mike was actually at the meeting,
Okay.
so he can provide that for you.
Sure. So we did meet with the Capital Improvement Planning Committee on the 30th, the last day of the fiscal year, and to discuss and vote the approval of $95,000 for a used ambulance to supplement what we have. And what spurred that was a number of things. So as folks will remember, town meeting did approve a new ambulance, but we won't be receiving that until for 18 to 22 months for a number of factors, one of which is the shortage of chips for vehicles. That's kind of a nationwide, probably worldwide problem. The other is that once a vehicle heads our way, with public safety vehicles, there's still another step, which is putting in all the specialty equipment, the radios and so forth. So a new vehicle is a long ways away as far as an ambulance.
Mike, excuse me, choose.
Two, excuse me.
Yep.
2 ambulances. So those won't be here for, in excess of a year and a half. So we have 3 ambulances here, and we have, I'm gonna give you rough numbers, but, here we go. One's 2018 with 100,000 miles. Another one's 2015 with 130,000 miles, and the 2012 has 145,000 miles. And that's current mileage, and so add on a year and a half to that, and so we're pretty high mileage. And then the kind of the last factor is that 2 of the 3 were in accidents over the last several weeks, each of which the other driver was cited as being at fault. So I just want to be clear that our ambulance drivers aren't driving negligently, but it's taken, two of our 3 ambulances out of service, with, up to several weeks to get them fixed and back on the road. And, again, they're aging. We were looking for, the chief was looking for a backup plan. How do we get from here to 18 months or so? And he needed a backup plan for this immediate several-week period, but also to get him to that 18 to 22-month period to make sure that we're able to provide ambulance services to the community. So the meeting was scheduled. Bill was away. I attended and ran the meeting in his while he was away, and we solicited questions from the board members, from AdCom and Board of Selectmen members, and then I forwarded those questions to the fire chief to look into and to show up with the answers, and which he did. He also showed up with about I guess it's about a 4 or 5, 6-page document laying out the history of these 3 ambulances, as well as some pictures on what's going on with them. Of late, well, I'll mention this and then get back to how the meeting went. We did have 2 ambulances out at a training exercise within the last week. One was what they call in the bay at the fire station, which means it can respond to calls. The other one has 4 wheels and an engine, and they were able to get out to the training site, but is not capable of making medical calls at this point until some more work is done on it. So if anyone saw 2 ambulances out there, we've actually got 1 still in service. So after a discussion, and Stephanie was there and represented the board along with Chief O'Leary, who's a named member of the CIP committee, and the rest of the CIP committee members. We took questions. All the questions were answered, discussed, and it was decided unanimously by the CIP committee that it was in the best interest of the residents of the town of Foxborough to buy this used ambulance and get it shipped here from the state of Michigan, so that we could provide those services. That ambulance was supposed to have arrived today, and I hope it did arrive today. Our insurance coverage on that did start today, so that we can get that, as soon as we got plates on it, we can get it into service and get us back to at least 2 on the road. And then when we get 1 more out of mechanics work, and get eventually a 3rd one back on the road. So that's what happens with the CIP. In all, $97,200 were voted unanimously to buy this used ambulance, and the $2,200 was to have it delivered here, driven across the country, under the seller's liability and costs, other than the $2,200 we provided. And then once we take ownership of it, then or actually take we get it handed off to us, then it's under our insurance, our liability. So I'd be open to any questions from any members of the board.
Just one piece of added information that's that for the benefit of the public is a part of the reason why we're having such difficulty with ambulances and accidents, a stepped up level of accidents, is because they're traveling a lot longer distance than normal. Norwood Hospital has in fact closed as of last June 28th, 2020, so they've been closed over a year now. That has impacted not only Foxboro, but just about every community in this region who actually normally travel to Norwood for emergency responses. It doesn't look like that's going to rectify itself anytime soon. I was actually with the town administrator, general manager from Norwood just about 2 weeks ago, and he indicated that they still have not resolved the insurance issues associated with that claim. So that's well over a year before they haven't even started construction to either repair or identify the new use for that property one way or the other. So that is something that it's going to take a while before we resolve that, which means that we're going to continue to incur a lot of additional mileage on the vehicles in order to transport people to hospitals. And it's unfortunate to say this, but I do think that a lot of people prefer to go to the Boston hospitals as opposed to going to hospitals in this region. Obviously, to the extent that we can provide service in this region, we certainly will do that. But when individuals tell us where they want to go, we have to take them there. And there's a fair amount of people that like to go in that direction.
Bill, I'm
Well, I
glad you,
thought we got a communication, maybe I saw it through being a Stewart patient, that there was a commitment to rebuild at that site. That was official.
If it was, it happened within the past week because they had not communicated. I haven't heard that from them directly. Did you see something?
Yeah, I
That's
feel like
something
we
new?
got a press release that they're committed to rebuilding at that site.
They've said that. They said that generally speaking, but they haven't specifically made any commitment to doing that as of yet.
Okay.
And they, even
Right.
town of Norwood is actually anxiously waiting that.
Still,
that-
and even if they have made the commitment.
If they do,
it's
you're still talking
Yeah.
you're talking 2 to 3 years from now.
Absolutely. But at least it's a commitment, for
Yeah.
a nice community area hospital.
yeah. Thank you for mentioning the Norwood Hospital. That was on page 1 of Chief Kelleher's letter, and I should have gotten that right out there, because
Oh, yeah, that's right.
it is one of the critical factors, because, he did talk at the meeting about sometimes the turnaround time is, 5 hours, depending with 3 to 5 hours, depending on where they're going. And, sometimes it's the patient's choice. Sometimes it's where's the available service that they need,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the level
Or
of
the
trauma.
type of
Yeah.
nervous needs
So
they have.
they can't request to go to Boston, can they?
They can request to go there. Now having said
Usually, I
that,
thought you have to be transported to the closest hospital,
well,
unless, okay, for example, I know if we call 911 for Jimmy because he's a transplant patient, he needs to go to Tufts. Unless it's like, life or death, he needs to be at a hospital. But if it's something really with his kidney, he was told, you just tell them, they don't have the services at the small local hospital that he would
right,
need if it was that. Now, if he was having a heart attack, he's going wherever they bring, but they don't get to ask to.
No, you're exactly
tell.
right, Stephanie. They're required actually to go to the closest adequate hospital.
that provide that service though. That's
Right.
the
Yeah.
issue. That's the key.
Yeah,
So-
but if it's like just simple emergency room,
Yeah,
or
different
something.
story, yeah.
But with that being said, I'm sure they call and, the hospital may bypass them somewhere else too,
Well,
because.
they may be
they're-
tied
they're all-
up with, they may be
they're all
tied up
getting
with other claims or
overflow
other cases,
from-
yeah.
Just to close out that CIP item too, I think during that meeting, you guys approved some meeting minutes. We just need to make sure those get uploaded to the CIP page as well.
We didn't actually vote the minutes, so they were on the agenda, but a member of the committee actually hadn't seen the minutes. And I think it was 2 members of the committee didn't see the minutes. And I think it was because we had to go out with 2 amendments for that agenda, it wasn't seen. So the minutes, the draft minutes are done. So at the next CIP meeting, there'll be 3 sets of minutes to do, including the meeting that was just done.
Okay. 3 sets of meeting minutes takes us back a while, back to 2020, I think. So, I guess I'll leave it up to the committee if it's worth having a meeting to get some things approved and cleaned up. There's been a lot of talk about CIP this year, and I think we want to clean up that bylaw. So I know during town meeting, it came up that someone went to go look at minutes. I think Mr. Quinn had said that, and they're not out there. And I know it's through no one's fault, but maybe that's something that we have a meeting for. When the next CIP meeting will be a long time to wait for that. So
We probably would have another one. We're gonna have one at least before the fall town meeting. So you're
Okay.
looking, yeah,
All right, good.
it won't be as long, I think, as you're thinking, maybe in the spring. It will be in the fall, yeah.
all right, great. Sorry, I didn't realize that you guys didn't approve those, so
Yeah.
I was just looking for them. All right, under Selectmen's
Seth-
update,
Seth
the only
has his
thing I
hand
wanted
up.
to,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, if I may, Leah, so just a quick point, perhaps. So there'll be citizens who see that we're purchasing another ambulance, and there'll be concern around the budgetary concerns, budget creep, if you will, meaning like we're buying another ambulance. Here we go. And so I just want to ask, I think, that I understand the reason to do it. This fits in with our plan, our safety plan, if you will. And let me just clarify, does the plan include 2 active ambulance plus one sort of backup? And does this fit in? I think this fits into that, and I just want to make that explicit, that this fits into our plan of we're not increasing service capacity, we're maintaining service capacity.
That's correct. We are not increasing. In fact, if anything, it's a decrease, but it's giving us some level of continuous service. And the reason I say decrease is that our ambulances that our paramedics work out of are F-550, the big box truck, full capable advanced life support. The one that just came here is more of the van type ambulance.
Okay.
So they can still do medical response, but it's not, new big box ambulance, you're talking
picture,
$500,000, whereas this is for the money and for something that's, it's on a brand new chassis, so it's a solid vehicle, but it's not gonna get us, forever. It'll probably be a trade-in at some point, but it's gonna give us that intermediary safety cushion. But it's not an expanded service, it's actually a bit of a shrunk service from what we've been used to, unfortunately.
And actually, Mike, I've just thought of a question that, like you said, I sent off a bunch of questions, and Chief Kelleher, answered them all. Just while we were talking about, like, the trips to Boston, are we gonna, and I'm not even sure how much we're doing it, I know it came up at one point, when the chief was thinking about getting another ambulance to, help with transport from Brigham and Women's at Patriot Place in town. So we're kind of laying off that too, right? So I'm just wondering if you guys, if either you or Bill had that part of the discussion. Maybe you can answer that. That maybe is another question for Chief. I just thought of it now, as far as, so the goal is really just for our residents.
So I can answer just based on the CIP, and then Bill or the chief could answer better on that larger issue.
Yeah.
This was really just to address the immediate issue of keeping ambulance services running. It had nothing to do with going outside of town of Foxborough.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's not a bad idea, since those services pay for themselves and pay for our equipment and people, but this decision had no, didn't touch that at all. So I don't know if Bill can talk about that, or if that's something you want Chief to talk at a future.
Right, I think I'd want to talk with the chief first to see what his plan, if any, I mean, there's been no approved plan to do that at this point.
Yeah.
So, it's been talked about as a possibility, but
Yeah.
but there's no approved plan to do that at this point.
I guess the last thing,
Great.
in case anybody was wondering where did the money come from on this and why June 30th was so important. One, because of those 2 accidents, but the other is because that was the end of the last fiscal year, and most of the money, in fact, all of the money was used from last fiscal year. So most of it was from apparatus revolving funds, and then there was a small amount, I want to say $21,000 in that range, that was actually from their expense money left from FY21. Chief, do you remember the Chief O'Leary, do you remember the amount that was the break?
I don't recall.
It was in the 20,000
but it
range that was.
In the 20,000 range.
Yeah, and all the rest was their apparatus revolving fund.
And that apparatus revolving fund was generated by a lot of the services that they provided from other communities for the repairs that they've done. So that actually worked to our advantage in this case.
All right, anything else with that item? All All right, the only thing I had for Selectmen's update is, I know we don't appoint members to AdCom, but we just talked about, the end of the budget season. Their appointments went through June 30th as well. And a handful of folks that have been really important members of the advisory committee for the last few years, I believe, are rolling off. So I know like Bernard Dumont is rolling off. He's been an AdCom member for 7 years. The former chair, Larry Uwe, is done. I think Brian Guild maybe done, and Tom Freeman, he's come and gone a couple of times. I think his term may be over. I don't know if he's coming back, but just wanted to take a moment. I know we talk so much about, again, just to reinforce how important every committee and board and volunteer that we have is, in town. So just to thank them, because it's a lot of time on AdCom.
And
A lot of time spent
I can't even tell you how much I learned, things that I thought, how things, maybe you'll reinforce what I'm saying, Seth. It's like you think, things go a certain way, or the money's spent a certain way, and, it's a big learning experience. So if somebody has some time, it's definitely worth it. It gives you a good idea of how your town's money is spent, and how much time and effort people, department heads, employees of the town put in. So it was a great learning experience for me. So if anybody, you're naming 4 people, so I'm sure Frank is looking for some people. So if anybody has a little time, it'd be a great thing to get into.
Does anyone else have anything for Selectmen's update?
If I just add that I second your appreciation for the advisory committee, and each of those individuals was really dedicated to the town. So I just wanted to throw that in there for my own perspective. Thank you.
You have worked with many of them, so.
Yes.
Oh, and actually, Leah, something, I wanted to say something the last time, and unfortunately, I wasn't here because of death in my own family, but and I don't know if anybody said anything from this board, but the McCarthy family lost a member, Brendan, and he was a fire chief out in Western Mass, and just to, prayers and thoughts out to the McCarthy family for their loss. And he really, there was a lot of medical issues going on the last year before he passed, and so, I always like to give that little personal touch, or for something that's gone on in our community, and a well-loved family of this community too. So I just wanted to throw out thoughts and prayers to the McCarthy family, and thank Brendan for his time on he was in Easton, out in Western Mass, his time on the fire department.
All right, great. Anything else? Then I think we just have 3 quick action items and we're ready to adjourn.
I think motion's from you, Seth, on.
Okay, so it's the approval of the minutes. Motion to approve the June 8, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Seth is yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes.
Leah, yes.
So we have the reconfirming of the Board of Selectmen license fees. Motion to motion to reconfirm the Board of Selectmen licensing schedule and fees.
I'll second.
And under discussion, this is kind of one of these housekeeping items that we really hadn't looked at. I think they were approved almost 10 years ago. Katie did do a bunch of research and go out to a number of communities to see if we are still in line. I think the feeling is that we are still in line. So at this time, we're not making any changes to fees. We just, did a kind of a market check to make sure we're still where we should be. So that's the reason that this item is on the agenda.
This is also a good news item too, in the sense that we're saying to the community, we're not going to raise fees in this area given the fact that, it's been a difficult year for a lot of people, and so we're obviously going to keep things where they were as well.
All right, so any other discussion?
Need a second? No? You second?
I have a
You
second, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we seconded. So I think we're ready for roll call.
Seth, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes?
Leah, yes.
Okay.
I think we're the last one. Yep.
Motion to approve the August 28, 2021 Monster Jam event for the Craft Sports and Entertainment Group.
I'll second it.
So for discussion purposes, this is really the first time under the new license structure that you're seeing an amendment to the license. However, the event is not new. It's an event that has happened for several years now. They've completed all the required documentation for it. Nobody's recommending any further changes beyond that. So this is, we treat this almost as a routine matter, but if in the event that any board member had a reason to call for a hearing on it, they could do that. But at this point, we don't recommend that.
All right, any further discussion from the board? Okay, I think we're ready for a roll call.
Seth Ferguson, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes?
Leah, yes. All right, and then I think we're ready to adjourn. I just want to thank the board for your flexibility. I planned on being there in person up until about an hour before, so it's great that we have this flexible technology, and
Yes.
sorry we had to roll call everything, but I think we made it through okay.
All good.
Absolutely.
Hope everything goes all right there. Hope everything goes okay.
All right, so just do we have a motion
I
to
move
adjourn?
that we end this meeting.
I will second it.
All right, roll call.
Seth is yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Ed, yes.
Leah, yes. All right, thanks everyone. See you in 2 weeks.